And we're back. Once again, I remind folks, if you wish to know if you wish to get the music that I play, ocremix.org is your best bet. Unless it's a Tiasu track or an Undertale track. If it's Tiasu, then you gotta go to Tiasu's Bandcamp. If it's Undertale, you gotta buy that soundtrack on Steam. Which you should. Because Undertale's amazing. And you want to give them more money. Anyway, we are back. And apparently we're not terribly worried about what's going on with Uni, but we are a little bit worried about the fact that, apparently we were attacking people? Can we get back to that? Though I was still in a rather strange state of mind. I was definitely much calmer than the me in that dream. There was a mysterious feeling of confidence in me, a feeling that Uni was definitely alive somewhere. So, it's as I thought. You don't remember the crash, do you? No, I don't think it's that. I remember it. Everything. I replied immediately. Surprised, he tilted his head. You do remember? Really? Yes. But earlier you... Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Anyway, have a seat. So my conclusion at this point is that Sutaru is alive, and we're swapping bodies periodically. Something is triggering us swapping bodies. Now, if it's something specifically happening, some time element, or it's random, we don't know. We don't have enough data for that. But I think Sutaru is just here in our body. He caused a bit of a ruckus because he was obviously a little confused. And then we were in his, and then something happened, we swapped back. That's my guess of what's happening so far. Again, as usual, blind playthrough. Do not confirm or deny anything. Anyway, have a seat. I'm gonna get you something warm to drink. You were unconscious for a long time. Your throat is probably dry. He went over to the table and picked up a steel cup. With one hand, he gestured for me to take a seat. I passed behind the woman who was wrapped up in the blankets and sat down at the table with my back to the wall. It's probably something we ate. Just what exactly do you mean? What did I mean about what? The man stood near the stove. He grabbed the tin kettle and poured some hot water in the cup. You said I was acting oddly, didn't you? Yeah, I said that. It was the truth, after all. That's not quite what I mean. I'd like to know if there was any reason for it. A reason? I can try to explain. But first of all, drink up. Place the cup in front of me. I took a peek inside the cup and saw a reddish orange liquid swaying lazily within. What is this? It's chamomile tea. I found it down in the storeroom. So I can't guarantee it'll be fresh. I glanced briefly at the corner of the room. There's an open rectangular latch. The hole was right next to the door. There was a ladder there. I couldn't see any inside from here. There's most likely a storeroom right below us. Chamomile has a tranquilizing effect. I see, so in other words, it'll calm me down. Well, something like that. I wasn't particularly agitated or excited or anything, but it was true that my throat was dry, so there's no reason to refuse the offer. Just as he'd suggested, I brought the cup to my lips. Hot! But that's kind of good. A refreshingly gentle aroma similar to that of green apples tickled my nose. The hot liquid made... Seriously, Haven, you can speak. I've heard you do it before. The hot liquid made its way down my throat, gently warming me to the core of my body. I'm alive again, would be the expression that described the way I felt best. That's good. That smile of yours. That's the first time I've seen you smile. Now you mention it, my face did feel like it was smiling. It was a little embarrassing. It may seem romantic or kind or something to be like, hey, you have a nice smile and stuff like that. I'm not saying this guy's being creepy, he's actually probably being very nice. But it just strikes me as weird when people point it out. I'm like, I don't need someone to point out if I'm smiling or not, thanks. You're just reminding me I don't do it very often. And why? The steam rising from the cup slipped into my nose as I started talking. I'm sorry, but can I ask you one more question? Your name. You said you had told me just a while ago, but... He sat down on the table across from me. To bring out an elephant if one shows up. His mouth was open and he was laughing. So what's so funny exactly? I didn't quite understand why he was laughing, and didn't really mind it, and as his laugh didn't seem the least bit ill-intentioned. I guess it's no surprise, all things considered. It's actually pretty amazing that we're having a somewhat normal conversation like this. From his jacket pocket, he took out a creased and crumpled pack of cigarettes, along with a silver lighter. Tapped the cigarette out of the pack and placed it in his mouth. He handled the lighter incredibly naturally, snapping it open with ease. After the crisp metallic sound faded, a red flame softly flickered into being. Carrying the flame across the tip of the cigarette, whew, exhaled a puff of purple smoke. Wait, purple? Yomogi Seiji. That's not going to be hard for me to pronounce at all. Nice to meet you. He placed the cigarette in his left hand and extended the other to me in greeting. I gladly shook it. His palm was so thick and rugged, it was as if it was made of rock. And then... suddenly a loud noise. Acting on instinct, I pulled my hand back defensively. Hey, what happened? Are you alright? Man had introduced himself as Yomogi, who shouted at the corner of the room. They were in the corner of the square hole I had seen only a few moments ago. Yeah, I'm alright. My hand just slipped, that's all. A voice could be heard from inside the hole. A familiar voice. It couldn't be. I shot up from my seat. What's the matter? Are you having another of your episodes? I didn't have time to answer. Before I could even think, my body sprung into action. Cleaning the ladder, I glided down along it and descended in the basement. Is Uni down here? Because if so, I am completely lost. Youth personality development. Uni! It is him! But he's wearing the hat and the scarf that we saw him in earlier. So is this before or after? Are we time traveling as well as body swapping? I am so confused. My premonition had been right, as I thought Uni was alive. I could tell underneath the blanket he was covering up in that he had this, like, beanie and stuff, but being completely lost in choking games, that never happens to me. Exactly. He looked at me vacantly. Dozens of the log for the stove were scattered at his feet. What's wrong? He asked with a surprisingly calm face. I slowly moved toward him. I stopped in front of him. Standing stiff as a rod, he looked up at me. Kokuron! Are you Kokuron? His pupils widened as he blinked, muttering those words. What? But how would you not? How long have you been here? I'm confused. So a bunch of Zero's Escape fans putting together a fan art, text, multimedia submission book to send to him. That's cool. I hope they have a lot of fun with it, and I hope it goes well. That sounds really cool. Wish I could do any art, but I've tried, and I'm not an artiste. Anyway, his pupils widened as he blinked, muttering those words. Uni, you remembered me. Of course I do. So he was here earlier. Satoru probably didn't recognize him, and that probably upset Uni. I'm sure it did. Uchikoshi is such a nice guy. I don't know anything about him personally. I'm guessing he's the writer that I keep mentioning, because all I know of him as is the writer of 999. So, if I'm hearing good things, though, that's cool. I'm glad. You submitted a thing? That's awesome, Sir Matt. Of course I do. There's no way I could forget. Filled with joy, I embraced him tightly without a second thought. Wait! They might break like this! Saying that, Uni slowly removed his glasses. Placed his glasses on a shelf and then... Kokuron! Suddenly, with a voice as lovely as a girl's, he leaped into my arms. Not exactly the voice I gave, to be fair. But still. I missed you. I missed you so much, Kokuron. Yumi aimlessly groped at my back. He rubbed his face against me, snuffling like a spoiled child. I cradled him closely in return. With all the strength of my arms, I squeezed him tighter and tighter. This is the second time I've been reunited with this boy. But unlike Uni from my dream, this one wasn't cold-hearted at all. Uni had recognized me as myself. He greeted me as myself and confirmed me as myself. Just that was enough to make me feel very happy. Uchiha Mitomo? Oh, I wish I could use Mitomo, but it keeps crashing on my phone! Oh, so mad. I love playing with that little thing. There's like 2 webcomic artists that I really, really love that friends me on Mitomo, and I'm like, I want to see your stuff. Ugh, frustrating. Anyway. Kokoron, I have something I need to say. What is it? Thank you for saving me. Oh, you don't have to thank me. I didn't do anything at all. Yes, I couldn't do anything at that time. I had only fastened his seatbelt and taken his hand in mine. For his pose. If there's anyone to thank for our rescue, it can only be God. Rather than fate, it seemed more appropriate to call this a miracle from God. But still, thank you. I clung to Uni's body as though I'd never let him go. Put his head under my nose and sniffed my lungs at his scent. We're alive. The smell of his hair, the burning warmth of his skin. Alive. Alive. Over and over again I repeated it in my mind. Oh, post PLR spoilers and ZTD ends. Oh, well, then I'll have to avoid it. I trembled in joy as I stood witness to this miracle. After a while, I realized my cheeks were wet. The small drops clinging to my lips were warmer than a chamomile tea I just drunk. We stayed in our embrace for a long while, long enough to lose track of time. Right then, my mind was completely void of the memories from my strange dream, with its grotesque script and frighteningly detailed scenery. But still, there was one thing bothering me. I can assume about what Uni had said. I want to know why he's here. Because we saw him somewhere else. Wearing these clothes. So which happened first? Why was Uni in a place like this? It bothered me, but well, it felt rather trifling and insignificant. He was safe, that was all that mattered now. The end of a long hug nowhere in sight, the small doubt that had sprouted him in the corner of my mind slowly faded away. I forgot everything, becoming intoxicated with his warmth as I continued to soak in the happiness of our reunion. Okay, I think I chose the wrong option. But I had good logic for why. I'm left-handed. When I use a pen, chopstick, or scissors, I always use them in my left hand. That's why I wear my watch on my non-dominant right wrist. That's because if I wore it on my left wrist, it would interfere with a variety of things. Of course, it was on my right wrist even now. That's pretty common, to wear your watch on your non-dominant hand. Kokoron had a fever. Is it heartwarming? Bad, Yoshka. Bad. It was a wristwatch I'd fancied and bought just the other day. The analog dial indicated it was 9:37. The animus within the anima. 9:37. Now, one of them was referred to the anima, one of them was referred to the animus. I think Kokoron, it was referred to as the animus? No, anima. And animus was Satoru. Think. In the first cutscene thing. It also referred to Uni as a trickster. So, as adorable as the kid is, I'm keeping an eye on him. The inside of the room was enveloped by a sad cry of the wind wailing outside. Other than that, besides the lid of the kettle rattling, not a sound could be heard. Not a single person opened their mouth. Heavy silence persisted. The cup placed in front of me was already empty. Chamomile tea had truly warmed my body and calmed my heart. I'd also gotten used to the feeling of sitting on hard wooden logs. I put my back up against the wall and observed the others. Uni was sitting on the bunk bed, dangling his legs. His face showed boredom, but even like this, he was far more energetic than Uni for my dream. Yomogi had fixed his gaze on the window, observing the conditions outside. Smoke was slowly rising from a cigarette he held leisurely between his middle and index fingers. The woman, who was wrapped up in numerous blankets, hadn't moved an inch from her spot in front of the stove. Okay, now we're getting a proper look at her. Is that like a shawl or something over her shoulders? It's pretty cool looking. Interesting. Oh, it's definitely part of the coat because I can see behind the text box that it's she's got sleeves that look like that. Or cuffs, sort of, that look like that. She flicked a stray lock of hair behind her ear. There was a lovely elegance in her actions, which, even though I was a woman, drew my eyes in the coquettish charm. Even after being thrown in here with such a disordered state, she looked like she took great care in keeping herself proper. The angle of her fingers to the tilt of her neck. There were 4 of us inside the cabin, including myself. What? I don't even get your jokes now! There was also one thing that had all 4 of us in common, and that was that we were all unhurt. Of course, we could probably easily find 1 or 2 scratches or bruises on our body. However, no one had any serious injuries. Our bones were fine, and all the inside seemed to be in place. It's not like I asked anyone directly, but that much was obvious just from observing the people around me. I don't remember a single thing about the crash, but I do know the shock from it had to be tremendous. Yet here we are, alive and well. As I thought about it, I couldn't help but think about the word miracle as well. Miracle. What a wonder it was that we were all alive here like this. The room didn't have any electric lighting. No light of a lantern served to illuminate the hopeless air around us. The flame within it wavered, caused the shadows of the room to dance and sway along with it, which somehow was a very illusory scene. Enchanted by the dubious flicker of the flame, I began to lose sight of the boundary between reality and fantasy. If the silence continued, I felt we would once more be consumed by a bizarre dream world. Why are we staying silent? There are so many questions! Let's start asking a few, shall we? Anyway, it doesn't matter what it was, so somebody say something. So I decided to first. Let's talk to the woman wrapped in blankets. We've left her alone long enough. I'd like to know who she is. I tried speaking to the woman wrapped in the blankets. Silence. Can you hear me? There was no reason she wouldn't be able to hear me. I was simply being ignored again. She had been so thoroughly ignoring me that I began to feel as if doing it out of some sort of hostility toward me. Something happened to leave her with a bad impression of me, perhaps. Ah! Satoru might have done something. No, I didn't remember anything like that. I just met her recently, and we hadn't even exchanged a single word. Or was it possible that she was just the kind of person to begin with? It might be that she wasn't really a people person or something like that. Yoshikev, no! With nothing else to do, I started talking to Yomogi. Hey, Yomogi-san. Yomogi-san? Sorry. I think I might have showed off my idiot American accent there a little too strongly. The 4 of us are the only ones here, right? Yeah, I think so. Why do you ask? Then the other passengers... Yomogi looked out a window and took a long drag of his cigarette. Slowly letting the smoke out, he wipes the white cloudy window. That's right. Now you mention it, I've yet to speak with you about it, Yukito-san. Yukito? Ah ha ha! That's Satoru's name! Uh-oh! Did I hear him wrong? Unfamiliar names suddenly entered my ears. Yomogi left the window to make his way to the center of the room. Took a square box from a shelf beside the bed. You want some more tea? This might take a while. He prepared the chamomile tea while holding the cigarette between his lips. He poured us some tea. Put out the cigarette in the ashtray sitting on the table and sat down in front of me. Well then, where should I start? How far back do you remember, Yukito-san? I'm pretty sure I can recall you saying I remember everything about the crash. Again he uses a name I've never heard before. What's wrong? Why are you frowning like that? I straightened my posture and began to talk, looking intently at him. Before we get into that, can I ask you something? What is it? Who's this Yukito? Who you say? But that's your name. I was astonished. Sighing deeply, I could feel myself starting to shake. Why? Why are things like this happening one after another? Thankfully, we've figured it out, but I could see why it would still be confusing for her. I can't exactly say why I was angry, but there was no way I was just going to bite my tongue. I raised my voice in protest. My name is Fuyakawa Kokoro, okay? I wonder how many times I have to repeat myself like this. I'm tired of it already. All of the other times I said the phrase had been inside the dream. Eh? Fuyakawa Kokoro? That's right. Fuyakawa Kokoro. I'm gonna say it 3 more times, just so the person reading this has to make sure he pronounces my name right. Should I show you my student ID card, or would a driver's license please you better? For that matter, how about we go down to the local ward office right now and see the official copy of my family registry? No, sorry. Seems I've somehow made you angry. but originally the one who brought the name Yukito was you, so... Yomogi hesitated to speak. His gaze wavered around the room as he rubbed the stubble on his chin. And seeing as how Sataru did something bad, I can see why he might be a little tense and defensive. Well, whatever. It's probably true if you say so. Not probably, it is true. Fine, I got it already. Your name is Fuyakawa Kokoro, right? Yes, I clearly asserted. And then... Wait. Just wait a second. On this episode of Seiji is Confused, the woman who had persistently preserved her silence until now finally opened her mouth. Throwing off her blanket, she delicately stands up and walks purposefully toward me. You! Just what is your deal? She slams both her hands on the table. Bending forward, she brings her face up to mine. Her entire body gives off a ghastly aura, filling me with dread. My name is Fuyakawa Kokoro. Then why did you say it was Yukito before? I don't know what she was angry about, and the dreadful expression on her face makes me unable to reply. Answer me! You, just what are you plotting? Another person thinking we're plotting something! What? Plotting. Now that's a word I remember hearing. Somehow I feel like it's almost like a reenactment of my dream. Seeing I'm Fuyakawa Kokoro and having somebody get angry at me because of that. Did rather resemble the dream. Then what was the dream? Was that dream supposed to be some kind of premonition? Hey, are you listening? I'm talking to you. I'm listening, really. Huh. Attitude sure has changed from before, hasn't it? Before. When I say before, just what do these people mean? Well, I'll ask you one more time. Why did you say something so stupid? Something so stupid? Don't pretend like you don't know. Obviously, when you were trying to trick us through saying you were Yukito Satoru. Just who is that person? Stop it with the lousy act already! Act. Even though I'm not acting. Now. Calm down, Mayuzumi. We finally have a name! You're scaring Fuyakawa-san. Huh? What did you just say? Mayuzumi? You just called me Mayuzumi, didn't you? Stop addressing me as if I were your old pal. That's who do you think you are? Well then, what should I call you? Lin-chan, maybe? You're making fun of me, you unshaven old bastard! Being referred to as Chan is the thing I hate most in this world. That's what the thing you... then what's the thing you hate second most? People I don't know calling me by my last name with no honorifics at all. Then what would number 3 be? Number 3 is... let's see... being called by the wrong name, maybe? Like being called Suzu instead of Lin, or being called Karu instead of Mayuzumi. You mentioned it. One time I got a direct mail addressed to someone named Tombi written on the same as Black Kite. Okay, this is all stuff about like how you write Japanese names and pronounce Japanese names, and I'm mostly lost. But I'm pretty sure that this is... we're kind of making fun of her, maybe? I don't know. Mayuzumi, you scallywag. Why did it arrive at my house? I wish people wouldn't suddenly decide that I'm some bird of prey. You hear that? Did you hear that? Tonbi, she said. I'd sure suit you to be reborn as a falcon, wouldn't it? Shut up! Brat's like you should just get lost, Brat. Whoa, what's wrong with you? I was just joking around. What? Got a problem? This is why grannies are trouble. And he had probably gotten angry as he deliberately muttered the phrase at a volume just loud enough to be heard. Granny! Oh, hell. Oh, hell. This reminds me of a certain character in 999. Where'd you get off calling a lovely London maiden of 23 a granny? A granny! Jesus, she's younger than I am! Can we cut her some slack, please? Oh, I feel old. Oh. I called you a granny because you're a granny, you senile old hag. You bastard! Look, you got crow's feet all around your eyes, don't you, Tobin-chan? Brat's like you, Brat. Mayuzumi showing off her way with hers. Yeah, she doesn't strike me as a linguist. You damn brat. You want to go, huh? Do you? He's like 11. Leave him alone. He's half your age. As if. Who'd want to start a fight with an old lady like you? Now you've done it. Wonder if I should roll you up in the mat and throw you outside. Try it if you can, you persimmon gobbling old hag. You've got it, you four-eyed sea anemone. Come on, cut it out, you two. Yomogi, sick of watching their back and forth, decided to interfere and push the two apart. You haven't forgotten where we are you? Have you? What are you going to do if you waste all your strength on a pointless squabble like this? But... No buts. Carry on with this nonsense, you'll be sleeping in the storeroom. Are we clear? Punch the 11-year-old child. Yomogi lectured them in a surprisingly dignified tone. The two exchanged sharp glares, but restrained themselves from taking any further actions. At least she is funny and cute. She is kind of cute, but I mean... I don't know about funny. She's the source of the comedic relief, but she's not specifically funny. Even though those two couldn't do anything with Yomogi standing like a mountain between them, neither really backing down, Uni and the woman both looked away and returned to their respective territories. Really now? Yomogi sighed as he placed a hand on his hip. Before we knew it, we had lost track of our conversation, and targeted woman's anger had completely changed. I was certainly glad to have gotten out of further questioning, but... Anyway, I was able to at least establish the woman's name. Mayuzumi Lin. Like a cat about to flee after a fight, she opened her mouth to let out one last parting complaint. Her personality was almost the complete opposite of what I had imagined it would be based on her mature looks and graceful bearing. Well, she is shy, and that's cute. I don't know about shy. I haven't gotten the impression of shyness. I mean, she didn't want to speak for a while, but I kind of got the impression Satoru is to blame for that. I don't know about shy. She definitely reminds me of a character from 999, though. Definitely reminds me of Lotus. I won't go into the specifics and anything like that, because obviously spoilers for folks who haven't played 999, you should. But yeah. God, she's shy. I think you might be trying to read too much into her character for personal gain. The image of her I had in my mind just moments earlier had been thoroughly revised. The woman is a rude, harsh, and uninhibited personality. I don't care so much about the inhibitions, but rude and harsh, definitely. By the way, Mizumi's questioning, though it had been brief, it implanted a lingering feeling of uneasiness in the corner of my mind. What were you expecting? Oh, hello, tea and crumpets? Yes, actually, that's exactly what she was expecting. It's about Yukito Satoru. Why was I mistaken for this Yukito person, whom I've never met before and know nothing about? First of all, just who is Yukito Satoru? That and the words both Yomogi and Mayuzumi had said bothered me. A while ago, you were saying all sorts of weird things. Then why did you say it was, Yukito before? Didn't I tell you my name just now? Your attitude has changed from before, hasn't it? Before? Replaying it all in my head, I finally arrived at an answer. Based on what they said, only one conclusion could be reached. No, something like that wasn't possible. Or watch the playthrough on YouTube. Yes, you could do that. I would recommend playing it for yourself, honestly, if possible. But if it's not, or you just feel like watching someone's Let's Play, mine is available on YouTube. I denied my own thoughts immediately. It was something I couldn't believe, that I didn't want to believe. The conclusion I'd reached was simply too unreal to accept. That's why I turned away from it. I didn't want to think about it any further. I am me, Fuyukawa Kokoro. I am no one else but me. Struggling to suppress my wild thoughts, I tried to convince myself of this. The more strongly she holds her belief in herself, when she swapped, it was during the question, am I me in mind or am I me in body? Maybe the more strongly she holds a belief in self, she keeps her own body? Curious. I try to convince myself of this. The inescapable reality, 1003. That doesn't mean you can't get the game, Nurian. Just Nurian. Damn it! I can't pronounce it right. Nurian. Watch this week, you'll get a free DTD playthrough as well. Not yet. Not for a while. That sounds like someone who is someone else would say. It was around 10 p.m. A large heap of blankets in hand, Mayuzumi climbed on the top bunk. Now there's a woman lying on her back towards us in more than ways than one. Wait, what? Now there was a woman lying with her back towards us in more ways than one. Okay. Kind of person that would stay in bed just to show everyone just how much she detested their company. Okay, I get what she was trying to say. I wasn't sure if she was really sleeping or not. She may have just had her eyes closed. In any case, it wasn't so much as a sorry or good night. The woman shut herself away in her own little world. I'll miss 40% of information if I play it in English? Really? How so? Is the translation, like, incomplete, or just not as informative as the Japanese? Or the original translation? I don't know, that seems weird to me. Naturally, there wasn't anyone who bothered to ask her what she was up to. Or are you just not... Are you multilingual and you don't have... and English isn't as strong for you? I suppose that's a possibility, too. To tell the truth, I myself was a little relieved that the troublesome one had decided to settle down. Well then, shall we begin? As if prudently choosing his timing, Yomogi quietly opened his mouth. There's something I'd like to say before I begin. Please, don't lose heart. There's still hope. Carefully chose his words as he continued solemnly. Flight HAL 18. That was the name of the small passenger aircraft we boarded. The plane was carrying a total of 31 passengers and crew members to a non-stop journey to Wakkanai, one of the Chin Islands in the north of Japan. If flight conditions were favorable, we would have arrived at the airport at 5 p.m. But... crack-a-boom, baby. January 11, 2011, 4:08. Flight HAL 18 crashed deep in the snowy mountains. I, who had regained consciousness after being thrown out of the plane, began my search for and rescue efforts for survivors. I'm guessing this is going to be Yomogi, so I'm going to use his voice. The snowstorm was raging all around. Sunset was drawing near and I could barely see past my nose. Still, I didn't give up. The fact that I was alright meant that there had to be other survivors as well, I thought. It was not a feeling of obligation or sense of justice which kept me going. I was spurred on by some unexplainable instinct. Why is there moving pictures in my visual novel? Before long, I found two women among the scattered rubble. Mayuzumi Lin and you. Having lost consciousness from the shock of the crash, you were laying beneath the caved-in ceiling, your heads hanging limp. Even when I shook you by the shoulders and slapped your cheeks, you showed no sign of coming to. Mayuzumi, on the other hand, was conscious. She stood up on her own, mumbling something deliriously and started aimlessly walking in a downpour of snow on her unsteady feet. The girl had most likely lost at least some of her sanity due to the shock of the crash. Even when I called for her to stop, my voice didn't seem to reach her ears. Somehow I was able to catch her. My very next thought was I should find some shelter from the wind. What I found was a section of airframe severed at the front and back. The outer wall burned black, unshapely exposed framework. It resembled the decaying corpse of a monster. Was that entirely necessary to tell her? Really? 11-1-11? Oh, I get it. Yeah, the number obsession continues. Or started, or whatever your perspective is. Pulling Mayuzumi by the hand and carrying you over my shoulder, I unearthed the carcass seeking refuge. Inside, a foul stench filled the air. I suddenly realized the smell was burning meat. There were chunks of charred flesh stuck firmly into the seats which had been fixed to the floor. Dead bodies were still seated with their heads against the back of the seats in front of them. Some of the bodies were missing everything from the seatbelt down. Translation of this game is a complicated thing to assess. Japanese English contain mistakes. It's about or and ore and etc. Okay. So, I mean, translation is never a perfect science. Communicating ideas that are different in different languages is pretty difficult. And getting this a sense of what was meant to be said can also be interpretive between people. Translation is often an art as much as it is a science. There were bloodstains, scraps of flesh, and entrails splattered against the windows. There was one corpse that seemed comparatively unharmed, but it stayed motionless, frozen solid like a plaster sculpture. The only word that could describe this disastrous scene was hell. Having taken it all in, Mayuzumi looked absent-minded and dazed. You were still unconscious, so you didn't react at all. However, a single sigh escaped your lips, which made me believe you'd surely get better with time. Your body temperature, however, was nearly that of a corpse. That made sense. You were wearing the same clothes you boarded the plane in. Of course, you weren't the only one with the problem. Mayuzumi was the same. She was wearing a suit and high heels, and her legs were only covered by a thin pair of stockings. Left like that, the two of you would have surely died. With this in mind, I looked through the melted baggage compartments in the ceiling of the plane in hopes of finding something useful amongst the luggage. Himogi, please stop talking about the corpses. Yeah. Left like that, two of you would have surely died. I grabbed the bags and looked at what might have been something helpful inside and pulled them down. I found a down jacket and a fur coat, a wool sweater and a muffler, and some gloves. I got together as many clothes as I could, and dressed you two in them. Dude is solid with the life-saving survival techniques. He knew exactly what he needed to do. By the time I'd finished, the sun disappeared behind the horizon. With the light of the moon and the stars eaten up by the clouds and snow, near-perfect darkness enveloped us. I found a flashlight near the flight attendant's seat. I turned it on, and a streak of light pierced the darkness. There were only two things to be done next. First, I had to make shelter by closing off the open ends with a shortened airframe. Second, I had to find some means of communication to send out a distress signal. I didn't spare a thought of anything else. There might have been people still alive somewhere in the snowfield. However, the small pieces of wreckage had been scattered over a large area, which would have made further searching nearly impossible. And what about making our way down the mountain? In the state of affairs, that took precedence over everything else. As a mountaineer, I knew how terrifying and treacherous the Stony Mountains could be. Oh, he's a mountaineer! That explains a great deal about how he has a lot of survival instincts for this situation. To start marching randomly inside a snowstorm is reckless at best. I didn't have a clue as to where we were. I didn't even know which way was to the base, so I couldn't even think of descending the mountain. Our options were very limited. Hey kids, who wants to talk about murder? We spent all night in Biovac with nothing else to wait for but the weather conditions to improve. Biovac! I know roughly what that is. A mountain climbing term meaning to sleep outdoors, to pass the night in a location where there are no cabins or campgrounds. If they got better, a military or rescue helicopter would have no trouble finding us. Of course, it'd be pointless if the three of us lost our lives before they arrived. That's why, to live, that was the highest priority for us. I immediately got to work. I used the gathered luggage and blankets and stuff to stuff up the gaping holes in the airframe. The day had come to an end and the temperature started falling. It felt like it'd soon get so cold that your breath would freeze instantly. I lost all feeling on my fingers, yet I continued working silently. However, as I was covering up one of the holes, I noticed something. Mayuzumi was gone. No matter where I looked, she was nowhere to be seen. I rushed outside. Thick snowflakes began to fall and cling to me in layers, as if he had been eagerly awaiting their chance. I bent double to avoid this attack, pulling my hood closer over my eyes, and began searching in the darkness. The piled-up snow between my feet was immeasurably deep. But thanks to that, I could see a trail broken by Mayuzumi rustling through. This is an actual term? Okay. To push through the deep layers of snow, creating a path while moving forward. A mountain climbing term. It's bivouac, not... Oh, I said biovac, didn't I? Bivouac, right. My mistake. With the torch in hand, I could turn to find more traces. I'm sorry, did you just say torch? Are you English? Are you English? Are you English? Damn it. I'm kidding. Sometimes people in Europe, as I don't need to tell my viewers because there are many European viewers, they will call a flashlight a torch. It seems weird though, because I remember them saying specifically flashlight earlier. So him specifically mentioning torch here is either a quirk of the translation, or he literally had something on fire in his hands. Yeah, he's doing an amazing job. Yeah, seriously. This dude knew exactly what he needed to do. I'm impressed. I could barely see a thing. At narrating, I mean... In the middle of the snowstorm at night, the light of a pocket flashlight was almost useless. Okay, so they're interchanging flashlight and torch. So I'm guessing this was done by a team of people. And sometimes they translated it differently. In the US, you never call a flashlight a torch. Ever. So, if you're calling it a torch, it's almost always European. European viewers never heard of them. They must be myths. In the middle of the snowstorm at night, the light of a pocket flashlight was almost useless. What's Europe? And if I tried calling out at the top of my lungs, the roaring of the wind would effortlessly drown out my voice. I couldn't waste another moment if I wanted to find her, as the traces she had left behind were quickly being filled with snow. I jumped into the snow. My body began to move without a second thought. I pushed on, parting the fallen snow before me. Blinded by the myriad of snowflakes, I single-mindedly continued to pursue her trail. After marching on for about 10 minutes, I finally caught a glimpse of her. She had collapsed face down in the middle of a large snowfield. Fairy tales like Santa and Easter Bunny in Europe. I had no idea why she would do something so foolish. Losing her cool and giving in to panic, she may have thought, it doesn't matter where I go, I just need to get away. Anyway, she had made her way here, and probably collapsed from the exhaustion. I brought my ear closer to her mouth. I could hear her breathing, just barely. I quickly put her on my back and started making my way about along the path I made coming here. Even if it was only a body of a single light woman, trying to rustle through while carrying a person on my back was unthinkably difficult. Our path was hindered by now hip-deep snow. It had become virtually impossible to take another step forward. And when we stood still, the snow blowing up at us from the ground was mercilessly robbing of our body heat. My limbs had become completely numb. My fingertips, if I could feel them, would probably feel like pieces of thick solid wire. We pushed on, but the surrounding landscape didn't show any signs of change. No matter where we went, the darkness spread endlessly through the space around us like a curse. Before long, I lost sight of the path. The markers I had left behind had become buried by the snow and were indiscernible. My legs had become completely stuck. I couldn't take a single step further. So this is it. I knelt down in the snow. I knew what would happen from this moment I set out. If you walk into a snowstorm, it's only naturally for you to lose your way. That's an interesting theory there, Sir Matt. But even then, I never once thought of turning back. Why is that? It might have been that bringing back Mayuzumi was just an excuse, when in reality I wanted to meet my end here. It's too late. Too late. No matter where I looked, the desolate barren plain was dyed the color of death. There's sort of way that's true. I hate you all. This world ruled by despair and emptiness was rejecting my life, and the act of breathing was regarded by it as a sin. The sharp pain through my entire body was a sure testament to that. With Mayuzumi still on my back, I collapsed in the middle of the snowfield. Sorry for the long wait. Now, I can finally join you. Dad. Dad. Right then I thought I heard a voice. A voice I'd heard so often and now thought I'd never hear again. Dad! Dad! I knew it had to be an illusion. Faced with death, my consciousness was breaking down. It felt like the voice of a spirit come to haunt me. However, I couldn't help but try to confirm it. Having gathered the remainder of my strength, I strained my throat and raised my nearly frozen body to its unsteady feet. Junichi! Junichi, is that you? Dad! Here! There's a mountain cabin here, I found it! When I snapped out of it, I saw a boy standing in front of me. It was a boy I happened to catch a glimpse of on the plane. It was Uni? Because why does he as it happens? Follow me! Saying this, the boy started walking. I gave my head a good shake, which somehow brought my strained consciousness back into focus. The boy wasn't my son. That's how I was sure it wasn't a delusion or some mysterious phantom, but a definite real entity with a solid shape and form. What are you standing around for? The mountain cabin is right over here, hurry up! I once again lifted Mayuzumi on my shoulders. With the boy in front of me as a guide, I started walking forward. And then... the cabin. I wonder what was written on the front of it. I have no idea! 7:16 p.m. 3 hours after the crash, we had finally reached the mountain cabin. It goes without saying that the boy who guided us here was Uni. Uni hadn't come then. Right about now, Mayazumi and I would probably be peacefully enjoying our final sleep in that snow. You could certainly say Uni was our savior. We haven't explained what happened with Kokoron. It's unfortunate Mayazumi, being unconscious at the time, still doesn't seem to understand this. So that's pretty much everything that happened until now. Did you get all that? With those words, Yomogi tried to finish off his long speech, but... Wait a second. Huh? What about me? What happened if you left me there? Why don't you tie up loose ends? I asked him again. Yomogi smiled ever so slightly. Of course, we went back for you. Uni gave me a hand as well. We brought you back from the shore and open airframe. Honestly speaking, it wasn't easy. I may be pretty energetic now, but back then I was on the verge of collapsing myself. But then how'd you find the hall? You said you got lost, didn't you? Uni knew the way. Uni did? I turned towards Uni. Behind Yomogi, Uni was standing in the spot where Mayazumi had been camping out until shortly before. As his back was to me, I can't see his face. I don't know whether or not he'd been listening to our conversation earlier. How did Uni know where the airframe was? He had a compass on him. A compass? As in a magnet you use to tell direction? Yeah. Uni, who had been thrown out of the plane, had immediately started walking in a straight line away from the crash site using his compass. I think it was a sound judgment, all things considered. You were just specifically saying how it was a bad idea to do that, but never mind. He was mentioning that because you would get lost. If you had a compass and you just went in a straight line, you'd be fine. Seeing as how there was no place that would have sheltered him from the wind, and it wasn't a situation where help would arrive if he stayed still and waited. That's why he began walking. Of course, he didn't just wander around. Properly confirming the position of his destination and the number of steps, he started walking in a snowstorm. If he found nothing in the direction he was heading, he could simply go back to where he started. He sure is something. Yeah, he's really frighteningly logical. Even if he doesn't always make the right assumptions, he still is really smart. No, a compass isn't a device to draw circles. His judgment isn't like that of 11-year-olds at all. Uni showed admirable composure, even more than that of a seasoned mountaineer like me. A weird feeling of suspicion, perhaps, started welling up inside me. I found myself unable to blindly admire Uni's efforts. Things like Uni conveniently have a compass and not losing his cool after the shock of the crash. But all that together, you couldn't help but thinking there was something unusual going on. Very true. Uh-oh. I just had a thought. Uni kind of is a boy of two minds, isn't he? There's the supremely logical one, and the scared of planes, adorable one. In a game like this, that is a little suspicious. Well, anyway, searching around like that, Uni coincidentally discovered the shelter cabin. What's important is that he remembered the direction he had walked in, along with the number of steps it took to arrive there. And that's why you were able to find the crash site where I'd been left behind, is that it? You're a compass, Uni! Is something bothering you? No, not really. I said that, but in reality, innumerable things are still bothering me. In today's conversation, nobody mentioned even once how Uni managed to find Yomogi and Mayazumi. Moreover, even if it was possible for Uni to return to his own starting point, it didn't necessarily mean to be easy to find again amongst the snow. Looking at that probability of all the occurrences, it seems like the word miracle would be an understatement to describe what had happened. In German we call it Zirkel, which is pronounced like circle. That's pretty interesting. It felt like the work of some invisible power, like we had been led to this cabin inevitably. An invisible power. What it could be, I have no idea. I see. I murmured as I brought the cup closer to my lips. The chamomile tea inside had become cold by now. That's right. I forgot to say something important, didn't I? Once it hit me, I lowered my head. Wiping my lips and correcting my posture, I spoke. Thank you. Eh? I'm showing my gratitude. Thank you very much for saving me. Hey, cut it out. I'm no good with heartfelt thanks and stuff. Besides, you want to express your gratitude, shouldn't it be to him? Gansata. I have no idea how to pronounce that, so I'm sorry if I just butchered it. I'm assuming that's hello. I know some Spanish. That is literally the limit. And some weeaboo Japanese phrases. That's it. Mogi stuck out his thumb and pointed towards Uni, who was sitting behind him. I stood up and went closer to Uni. Uni had curled up in a ball in front of the stove. The way he held his head made it difficult for me to see his face. I squatted down beside him and spoke. Uni? Uni? Uni didn't reply. Leaning down, I lightly shook him by the shoulder. I took a peek at his face. Crouched in place, Uni was breathing evenly in his sleep. Thank you, Uni, I said in a soft voice. In reality, I felt like I wanted to hug him from behind and roll around with him on the floor. I was overwhelmed by a feeling of gratitude, one that could not be conveyed by thousands or even tens of thousands of words. That we're alive right now is all thanks to them. Uni and Yomogi. I gently embraced Uni's body and laid him down on the bottom bunk. I placed several blankets on top of him, and then a few more for good measure. He tossed a bit in his sleep and mumbled something. I quietly removed his glasses. Now then. Holding Uni's glasses in my hand, I wander aimlessly around the cabin. The emotions welling up inside me, seeking an outlet or driving me to walk around in circles. We should put on those glasses. You can reverse engineer someone's, whatever someone's difficulty with seeing is by putting on their glasses. This is a pretty commonly known thing. But I have a suspicion. Depressing intensifies. There's a passionate feeling of gratitude, and I need to convey it to someone somehow. But who? Well, of course, Yomogi-san. This is adorable and everything, and weird that we're seeing it from her perspective, from a different perspective than hers. And it's adorable. Oops. Okay, so that's how we get rid of the text box. Okay. I think what we are going to do is save the game and end today's stream. Because you see, my name is Lamar Haven, and I stream Monday through Friday starting at 10 a.m. PST, that is 1 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday, Thursdays, I stream what you've seen here, Remember 11, the story of this girl's ability to be in different people's bodies. Apparently. I'm super interested. It's already got enough mystery to get me pretty well hooked. And such, so I'm excited to play the rest. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I play Dragon Quest VI Blind, as chosen by you, the viewers. I look forward to returning to that tomorrow. Last time I played it was last Wednesday, so I'll be a little bit lost, but I'm still excited to see it. That said, Remember 11 is going to get cross-posted to YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, you can either follow the link on screen or link below the stream, get to my YouTube channel. On YouTube, I finished a YouTube-specific series yesterday, Clash at Demon Head, the story of Bang and his mission to save the world from the governors. With that concluded, I'm going to get started on getting ready for my next YouTube Let's Play for next week. I have a good idea of what it's probably going to be, but I've had some other options crop up lately, and I'm thinking about doing one of those. We'll see. In the meantime, thank you very much for the new people that showed up today. I'm excited to see you, and I'm excited to continue this game every Tuesday, Thursday. And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you folks next time.